Well, here we are, my friend.
Hello.
Hey, how you all doing, folks? Welcome to Rewind Room. This is, yeah, absolutely. Hey, yeah, I love the sound effects. I'm loving it. It's good stuff. Oh man, so yeah, welcome guys. Welcome to the show. This is Rewind Room. This is the nostalgic podcast where we take a trip back in time and we go and we look at some of those memories that really have stuck with us and have really just meant a lot to us. My name is John Cody, and I have with me my wonderful co-host with me as well.
Ramona Mejia. Great to be
Yeah.
here, guys.
Oh man, this is great. We've been talking about doing this for quite some time. We've been going back and forth. We've been thinking like, oh my gosh, like um so just a little background, me and Ramona have been friends for a while now, and we kind of had a very similar background. We had a lot of things in common, and we realized in a sense we're kind of the same person. We might just be variants of one another. Yeah.
Not the alligator kind. Oh my
No, not
gosh.
the alligator kind, not the alligator kind, but the Loki kind. Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so it's really cool. So yeah, so how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. A little nervous. Obviously, this is our first episode on the podcast, and this is pretty much my first time putting myself out there in this
I
way.
hear you.
But I'm super enthusiastic about the content that we have for today when it comes to getting to know each other, or you guys getting to know us, along with our future endeavors for this specific podcast.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I hear you. Oh, excuse me. I'm a little nervous myself. As you can hear, I just had a frog in my throat there for a second. But no, I mean, I'm excited as well. I mean, this is something like I said, we've been talking about doing this for a long time.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, we've
And
been
we're
wanting.
actually doing it now.
Yep, we're actually doing it now, which is crazy. So, one of the big things I think, when it comes to doing stuff like this, is kind of like how is nostalgia really defined? And the reason I say that is because you on hand have one big, kind of banner about that, right? And you have just kind of one, a lot of times people look for the umbrella term and they're like, well, nostalgia means this and this. But really, I think it's a broad definition. I mean,
Absolutely.
it can really be about anything. I mean, because I mean, the thing is that nostalgia is unique really to the person that lived those experiences or are really taken by those experiences of the past.
Absolutely. I sat there thinking in the library yesterday, actually, how I would define nostalgia
Yeah.
and how I figured most people would. And then I realized
Yeah.
nostalgia can't really be defined in one way or another. It's just an
Oh yeah.
overall feeling. And the best way that I could portray my own definition of it
Sure.
is I have it typed down here on my notes. Unfortunately,
Oh, hell yeah.
I was not able to memorize it by today, but I just figured I'd share it with you, Jonathan.
Yeah, let's hear it. Absolutely.
So this is how I define nostalgia. To
Hmm.
me, nostalgia is a profound longing for a shared or personal experience. And note shared or personal because it
Yep.
can be something that's communal, it could be something that's specific to you. It's one that weaves feelings of joy, sorrow, curiosity, and a touch of surreal into the fabric of our everyday lives.
Oh,
What makes it so meaningful is that it has a unique duality. Unlike any other human experience, nostalgia is shaped by both positive and negative stimuli,
mhm.
evoking an indescribable reaction. Hence the reason why so many people, especially so many people in our generation right now, are really clinging to nostalgia.
Mhm.
It's a subjective sensation that transcends explanation, connecting to memory, emotion, fleeting moments, a sound, a smell, or even something intangible or
Yeah.
metaphysical. It's something that you really can't describe. It's like an invisible person. Do you know what I mean? You
Yeah,
sense
yeah.
them, but
No,
you just can't
100%.
really you can't really put the nail on exactly what it is.
No, 100%. I think you just used all my words. I don't even know if I can follow that up that well, but
Wow, well let's go.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing I love about you is you're always so philosophical in whatever you're talking about. And I mean that in a good way. I'm not trying to say like, "Oh, you like really dig deep," because I mean, like you just summed up, it's a longing really. It's a past, it's wanting for something of either your past or of maybe a past that you wish you lived even because I know
Exactly.
because there's a lot of people I hear nowadays, and they're talking and they look at some of these eras. Like one of the big ones I'm surprised to hear is the 50s. How many people talk about, oh, I wish I could have lived in the 50s,
Oh yeah, that's
and whatnot.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
yeah.
gonna say like everyone in my life has said that, but I've heard it like more often, or I hear people say, or the 80s. The 80s is another one. 80s is actually a big one
Yes.
because I mean, the 80s is one we're really gonna get big on in this show
Yeah.
eventually when we get to it. 80s and the 90s, and probably the early 2000s because that's more the era we grew up in. But
Well, it's funny because I overheard. Actually, no, it was from a video that I watched either on TikTok or Instagram,
yeah,
and it was kids born in I think like 2015 or something like that,
Mhm.
feeling nostalgia for the early 2000s, like early
Yeah,
2010s. And us being born in the late 90s,
yeah,
it sort of blew my mind because I realized our childhood is now seen as nostalgia and not just as a
it's
part of our lives.
it's insane,
It's
isn't it?
seen as, yeah, it's seen as a moment in time that can no longer, be either relived or whatever because it's so far in the past. And
Yeah,
I think about that and I put myself into that and I think, oh crap, you're right. Like all the shows I grew up on are
yeah.
upwards of 30 years old. I mean, we just had the 25th anniversary of how many PBS shows?
Straight up.
Like that is crazy.
I mean, Dragon Tales turned
Mm-hmm.
25.
Zaboomafoo.
Zaboomafoo turned 25.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think what else might have turned 25 this year. I know those two.
Oh man,
Those
there
two
was a
are big
list. Yeah.
because those are
Yes.
two I really grew up with. Where
Mm-hmm.
where Dragon Tales and Zaboomafoo. And obviously, so I'll say this about us: we were both big on PBS Kids. That was that
Oh
was
yeah.
that was kind of our go-to for children's programming. I mean, obviously we like Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network. Well, I wasn't that big
Mm-hmm.
of a Cartoon Network guy, but I mean, I think as time went on, I came to appreciate it more. Now that I'm an
That's fair.
adult, I'm kind of going back and looking at some of those. I think a lot of it was just really like because okay, I'll put it this way. I was homeschooled when I was young. So,
Gotcha.
being homeschooled is one of those things where it's one of those things where basically, it's kind of like you're at home all day and like you got to find ways to learn, obviously. And so my mom came up with a few, different ways of doing that. Obviously she'd have like, these books that she pick up at places like, Learning Bug, or that was the one we had up here, the teacher supply store or wherever, you get stuff like that, just like lesson books, and then would just have me do like lessons and whatnot. And then the rest of that was educational TV.
Well,
So
so much of our generation depended on the public broadcasting system to uh, not only bring us educational content, but bring us media for solace as well. If our parents were working, or say for your instance, no, if you don't have any siblings, or for myself, I didn't really have many friends growing up, so
yeah, likewise.
free TV was all of those. It was our parents, it was our friends, it was our babysitter.
Yeah.
PBS was all of that.
Exactly. And then you have shows on there like Arthur, and
Mm-hmm.
you have shows like Cyber Chase, you had
Cyber,
shows
yeah.
like you had a bunch of those shows, and then you had the more nurturing ones like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I mean,
Yes,
talk
yes.
about talk about a wonderful gentleman. I mean, who and the thing I think I really appreciated about those times too was it felt like there was a lot of care. And I'm not saying that we don't see that now. I'm just saying that it felt like it was maybe times 10, when we were young at
Mm-hmm.
least. And the reason I say is because you had
Mm-hmm.
those figures like Mr. Rogers who would, who was that nurturing voice, to be like, to kind of be that assurance that, no matter what's going
Mm-hmm.
on in life, you're special for who you are. And that's, I think, what
Mm-hmm.
was big. You had stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I think with now, it's like, I'm not saying it's absent, but you just don't, it's not put in the forefront as much.
Yes, I have not really delved too much into modern children's shows,
Yeah,
but from what I have seen, there has been this newfound love for shows such as Bluey.
yeah.
I haven't
Oh,
really
it's a good
watched
one.
into that, but
Mm-hmm.
they're going more, apparently Bluey and shows like that
Mm-hmm.
are going more towards the I guess when it comes to the story structure of every episode,
Mm-hmm.
they're more geared towards the way that it was done in the 90s, where
Yeah.
it's slow paced, there's a
Mm-hmm.
moral, it isn't just a bunch of hyperactive colored characters jumping around, like how people were described Coco Melon or something like that. And
Yeah.
again, this is off speculation. I have not watched any of these shows, but it
Mm-hmm.
seems like Bluey could be considered a modern day, say, Blue's Clues or
Sure.
Mister Rogers when it comes to
Oh, sure.
being that moral meant for children while also being that sense of comfort and relief, rather than just constantly overstimulating.
No, I hear you 100%. I've only seen a little bit of Bluey. Okay, so I have some friends that are obsessed with Bluey, funny
I've
enough.
seen 3 episodes, but that's not
Mhm.
enough to really get a good hand on what it
Likewise,
is
I've
about.
likewise, I've only seen a couple episodes. I think I've seen one. I'm trying to remember what it was about. The only episode I can remember is there's one where it's like it's the dad's birthday. Oh, this was hilarious. So it's like it was the dad's birthday, and it wasn't Bluey. It was Bluey's. I don't know Bluey's sibling. If anyone can help us,
Mm,
that
yeah.
would be great. I
We
mean,
need to watch Bluey then.
yeah, we need to watch Bluey. Yeah, we need
Yeah.
to see what's going on. But one of them makes him like this really weird, like mud cake. And obviously they're kids, so it's like,
Yeah.
they can't think. But instead of politely dismissing it, and or just being like, oh, thank you so much. I think I'll eat it later. And then proceeds to like, do the right thing with it or whatnot. He actually tries to eat it. I'm not even joking when I say that.
Okay.
He actually tries to eat it and he eats it and then he walks off and he's like, "Oh, I'll be right back. I just need to go for a little walk." And he walks off with the mom and the mom's like patting his back and he's just throwing up on the side. And they're like, "Well, Daddy ate it, so he must have liked it." Yeah, it was something like that. And then the show just ends.
Well,
I'm
see,
just like,
that's definitely more on the modern sense of writing.
"Oh,
Obviously, I
100%."
don't think you would ever see that on. Maybe you would see that on Arthur, maybe, but I
Maybe it
don't
would be
think
a
David
dream
would
sequence. It would
ever.
be a dream sequence for sure.
David would never eat anything of Arthur or DW's. That
Well, maybe Art. Well, actually, no, Arthur's a pretty bad cook. Never mind. I take that
yeah.
back. I take
Oh
that back.
boy.
And the only reason I know that he's not that good of a cook, at least in the sense of this show, is because I don't know if you remember that one episode where the mom and the dad have a fight, and the next thing you know, it's like you have like he tries it's a dream sequence, obviously,
Oh, he's
but
imagining life without his
life
parents.
without his parents, yeah, and it's kind of
Mm.
like it's the three of them, Arthur DW and Kate living in a home, and he makes this like weird stew that he looks like he took it out of his toilet. And
Oh
the next thing you
god.
know is they eat it, and then Arthur just goes, "Ugh, I can't cook."
It's hard to believe that he contributed to one of Muffy's masterful cookies. Then
Well, let's be
considering
real. They were all just messing around when that
they were
happened.
all just messing around, but he still contributed.
He did. He did. He didn't put
uh,
banana in though. That's the one thing. He didn't put banana in.
how funny that the one ingredient that I actually would put in.
Yeah, that was Binky. That was all Binky.
Oh
But
gosh,
anyways, you see what happens when you turn us loose. We just start talking about random past memories. But
we're
anyways,
here for it. We're here for it.
we're absolutely here for it, but I'm just saying, like, that's the beautiful part of this of this and not our friendship and everything. But you know, it's really interesting how you and me kind of met, because it was in college. We were good.
Yeah.
We became good friends in college, and we realized we had a similar background. We were kind of loners. We didn't have a lot of friends, and it was big because we go to college, and next thing you know, it's like, wow, somebody who's like-minded. At least for me, that's how it was. I don't know how it was for you, but that's how it was
No,
for me.
it absolutely was. Especially with the classes and the people that we were around. there's just a lot of there are a lot of big personalities
Yeah.
when you go to school, obviously, but when you go in for something artistic, uh, specifically cinema or creative media studies or what have
Hmm.
you, you have a lot of like-minded people, but a lot of egos. And I
That is
realized
true.
that the most real people were the people who were right under your nose. I was never
Hmm.
trying to find a friend group or anything like that. I've always
Yeah.
had problems socializing and
Hmm.
things
Same
like
here.
that. But it was just so easy to talk about film. And we were put in the perfect setting in classes that forced us to talk about film to people next to us or to the people in the adjacent class or whatever. So it's sort of like school laid out the platform for our friendship to be exactly what it was.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I was kind of in the same boat, to be honest. I didn't really have a lot of friends. I'd just gotten out of high school. High school was mid for me. I mean, thankfully, it
Mm,
wasn't as terrible as middle school or elementary, but
yeah.
I was bullied a lot, as a kid. And unfortunately, when you get into experiences like that, you kind of become a little bit less trusting,
Oh yeah.
of those out there, and you're kind of like, wait, can I really trust anyone, and
Yeah.
whatnot. And obviously, I made friends in high school. I made friends, in these places, but it was very few.
Yeah.
Um, and whatnot.
I'm more of a traditionalist when it comes
Yeah.
to, like, how in films you have that one
Excuse me.
friend and then you cling to that one friend.
Hmm.
I had the same one friend since kindergarten, and everyone who came in and out of our circle was because of him. He was a personality of his own, and he enjoyed
Hmm.
attracting people into friend groups and stuff. So by default I was always around people, but I was never really friends with them. So I've never really felt alone or anything. I
Hmm.
just realized there's a difference between us.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
when it
No,
came
I
to
get you.
our friendship, it came so effortlessly. It
Yeah.
feels like there are no strings attached.
Yeah.
There's no will when it comes to intention. Um and as adults, you get to freely choose who you spend time with. Whereas when
Absolutely.
you're younger, you're either detested by a group of people and you're bullied,
Mhm.
or you're brought into a friend group and you make friends and stuff like that. And then there are people like us who are sort of in the middle where, we have acquaintances and friends and whatnot, and then we
Mhm.
also had the people who were rude and mean to us, and then
Yeah.
we're just trying to navigate the social realm within that.
Absolutely.
Especially being on the spectrum, things like that will
Yeah.
really hinder your way of connecting with people. But something as beautiful as film or music or whatever
Mhm.
is what ties people like us, people who feel different and outcasted. It's what
Mhm.
ties and clings us together.
Absolutely. You did it again. You robbed me of words. And I mean that in a good way, obviously. I mean, it's just so, because basically, I guess the way I could describe it too was like, I don't think it was me so much wanting to belong to like a group, if that makes
Mm,
sense. Like, it
yeah,
wasn't so much that, it was more just wanting to be accepted, you know.
gotcha.
And I think a lot of it is just like when it's kind of like that parable. I'll put it this way. It's like when you're young, your parents, TV shows, whatever, kind of hype up, oh, you're going to make all these friends, you're going to have such a
Yeah,
fun time at school. And then the next thing you know, you're outcasted because you don't meet society's, you know,
yeah.
requirements, or I shouldn't say requirements, but what society's wants to ask of you, I guess you could put.
Yeah, I have made the mistake multiple times in my life, even as an adult, I do,
Yeah.
of comparing my life to a movie. Not necessarily saying that I'm the main character. Obviously, there are some people who
Oh,
suffer
sure.
from main character syndrome, whatever. But from, I would say, the early 80s on, especially the 80s to the
Yeah.
early 90s, all we got were films of these amazing, magnificent friend groups who found buried treasure, conquered the evil guy of the town, banded together to fight the monster. It was a group
Yep.
of maybe 3 to 6 people, and they were best friends for life. And it's not like I wanted a friend group, it's just
Mhm.
I wanted it to be like in the movies
Yeah.
where these people collectively, all of us would do amazing things. And I realized a lot of people aren't built that way. A lot of people aren't built to assume the best for themselves. They just want to go through the everyday steps of their own life, and that's beautiful and stuff. And but to be promised that as a child, that this is what childhood, adulthood, even your teens is like, especially for an impressionable child, it really shook me. It really affected me negatively, because here I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, all of these shows
Mm-hmm.
and TV shows say that you have to have friends and you have to have a social life, and if you're bullied, you're a nerd, and if you're this, you're that.
Yeah.
And every example I would watch, I was on the opposite end of where I wanted to be. And it was sort of mind-boggling for me as a child when it came to establishing an identity.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't want to be the person that wasn't in that group of the
Yeah.
I didn't have a group or anything, but I also didn't
Yeah.
want to not be that person.
Yeah. 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 No, absolutely. I mean, I can totally get what you're saying. I mean, it's kind of like, you want to you want to be liked, you want to be accepted, and I think movies and TV sometimes form this perception sometimes. I'm not saying this in a bad way, but I mean,
Absolutely.
like, they form this perception that,
And expectation
and
too.
expectation, that this is how friend groups are. This is how these things work. And then you realize when you actually start to make friends, it's nothing like that at all. It's like,
No.
you're gonna have dark times, you're gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna go through crap, things are gonna
Mhm.
happen, and you realize, wait a second, this this is not what this portrayed it as, you know?
No. And
And
that's something beautiful, segueing into the idea of nostalgia. That's one of the reasons
absolutely.
why I really love to cling to it. It's because of these standardized media forms that we looked up to as children
Yeah.
that are no longer relevant in our adult years. But as an adult, we can't help but really wish it was true and want to go back to it.
100%, I mean, because I guess the best way I can put it, is that, when we were young, growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, we kind of grew up in that last era of 90s nostalgia, really, because it kind of carried over into the early 2000s, I mean,
It did, yeah.
we still grew up with the concept of, you know, Blockbuster Video and a Pizza Hut on a Friday night, I mean, that was a big 90s trend, and that carried over to our generation,
We
and
were arguably one of the last generations who had a childhood without social media and without
yes,
cell phone use, excessive cell phone and
yeah.
technology usage. I mean,
Hmm.
the iPad. I didn't get an iPad until I was like 24. You
Yeah.
know,
I didn't
and my cousins who are like under the age of 4 all
yeah.
have iPads. You know,
It's
and that's
crazy.
crazy.
It's
Yeah,
crazy. I mean, I didn't get a cell phone till I was 13. And that I'm talking about just a
me
flip
too.
phone. I was
Me too.
13 when I got my first phone,
Yep, eighth
and
grade.
whatnot. Yeah, same eighth grade, mom.
Mhm.
Finally, by that point, my folks are like, okay, we think you're responsible enough. And also, okay, funny story. I laugh at this now, but at the time it was traumatic. Do you remember the when back in the day when you go to like a big store, maybe a mall, maybe a big like place like Target or Walmart, and the concept, if you got lost, your parents would always tell you, okay, if you ever get lost or we get separated in the store, go to an employee and they can help us connect again or help
Yeah,
find us.
yeah.
That happened to me one time, and
Oh no.
and unfortunately, it scared my mom to death. It happened when we were at Target. I don't remember what she was looking at, but that was back when Target had a media center, if you remember.
Oh yes,
Like
yes, I do remember that.
DVDs galore, video games galore, just media, 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 And it wasn't just the entertainment area, it wasn't just electronics, it was media. That's literally
Oh
what it was
yeah.
called, the media center.
Well, they had
And
that little corner where you could test out the PlayStation, the new
yep.
PS3 at the time, and
Yep.
yep,
Yep. Yep. And I think it was right around the time that no, it was
the
before.
Wii.
No, it
Was
was
it
before
before?
the Wii. It was during the
Oh,
PlayStation 2's lifespan. I
oh,
walked
that's
off.
that's early, early. Holy crap!
Yeah, so like I remember like I hopped off and the next thing you know, I couldn't find my mom and I'm not gonna lie, it was scary. I mean, like you see
It's one of
this
the
in like
scary. Yeah.
I mean you see it in movies and you see it in TV shows and you're like, "Oh, it's just a cliche." And then when it happens you're like, "Oh crap."
No,
Like
absolutely.
like you're scared and like, and the thing is that it's even scarier, I realize, for your parents, because it's like,
Well, as a
yeah.
child, the worst thing that could happen is not finding your parents.
Oh,
But as a
absolutely.
parent, there are a myriad of things that could happen to your child that you can
Yes.
think of because you're an adult.
Absolutely. My mom went up to the front and they said, "Well, we don't really do that anymore because a lot of kids were starting to get phones by that point. So they kind of got rid of their intercom systems, and
No
whatnot.
way.
And because Target now it's all radios now.
That's true. I never noticed that. It's because
Target is
Walmart
all
Walmart is still intercom.
Yeah. Well, to an extent, they're better at hiding their intercoms now because another big. We'll talk about that in a minute, but because too many people were getting immature, with I don't
Yes,
know.
I've seen those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the intercom pranks. Oh
Yep.
gosh. Yeah. So, yeah, too many people I think got I think that's why a lot of stores now are switching because too many people have kind of abused that. So,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
like,
with the age of Vine and TikTok and stuff like that, everyone will do anything at anyone's expense for a laugh.
yeah, well, that era actually, that was like what, 2010s, I think, when that trend was big, intercom pranks.
Yep. Yep.
And
Oh,
and
well, it was big on YouTube and then
Yeah, it
those
was big on
short
YouTube.
form.
Yeah. But I'll talk more about that in a minute because obviously we're going to talk about some of this stuff. But no, I think it's great. I mean, obviously, I think one of the other big things about nostalgia as well is there's a lot of experiences that you and me never lived, but we are attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy.
For one example, for myself,
Mhm.
I consider myself a very big kaiju fan, which is a Godzilla fan, and
Oh my gosh.
of course, I was not born
Yep.
during the Showa era or even up to the late Heist era.
Hmm.
But what got me into it was the American 1998 Godzilla, the one that's hated from everybody or by almost everybody. I love it, by the way.
Yeah,
Um,
that's cool.
but
Yeah.
I didn't live through the beginning of the Godzilla era, but I'm still living it by going to cons, collecting figures, watching the movies, and even watching the new movies.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm also big on Godzilla. I don't know if I'm as big a fan as you are. I mean, don't get me wrong, don't get it twisted. I love Godzilla. It's like one of my favorite movie series of all time. It's just I haven't gone as deep in the lore, I don't think, as you have.
Mm,
Um,
fair enough.
but no, I agree, 98 Godzilla. Okay. Was it 98?
Yep, 1998.
1998. Yeah.
Zilla.
Zilla, yeah, no, I hear you.
Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, imagine what the people are gonna say when they hear that. They're gonna just be like, "Man, you just betrayed us."
Controversial, but hey, I will take any Godzilla anytime, even the
Respect.
MonsterVerse. And the reason why I hold Godzilla 1998 near and dear is because it was literally the first film I had seen of Godzilla that got me into monsters. And
No,
then
I get you.
actually watching Godzilla, actual Godzilla, the Japanese Toho versions afterwards just
Mhm.
sparked my love even more.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
I didn't live in that era, but I still love it.
I mean, there's worse movies out there. Come on, guys. Like, I mean, I actually don't
Mr.
think
Megorium's Wonder Emporium.
I've never seen that actually.
It's the worst movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
All I know is it has Dustin Hoffman in it, and that's it.
Yeah,
Other
and I
than
think
that,
Natalie Portman. I
Natalie
think.
Portman.
I
Yeah,
think.
that was like one of the last G-rated movies too, because I have not seen a G-rated picture in so long.
In so long. Oh, I'll have to
Like,
fact check that.
I mean, I think there's some obviously. Yeah, you'll definitely have to fast check me on
Oh,
that.
everything is now PG.
Yeah, it's either PG,
I see.
PG-13 or R. I don't see
I
a lot
see.
of like rated G, like general audience movies. I mean, mostly kids movies are, but like I don't see many of those coming out in theaters anymore either.
That's a good point here. Let me bring
Yeah.
out the good trusty Google.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, the last rated G film was actually Toy Story 4.
Oh, just kidding. I didn't know that was G, actually.
But even then, I guess that was still a while. And that's according to an AI overview on Google. So I don't even know if that's
Mhm.
correct. So
Well, I mean, we are getting Toy Story 5 soon, so I guess we'll see what happens there.
yeah, I remember
Whenever,
in yeah, I remember in 2007 I saw a commercial for the or a trailer for the 2010 Toy Story 3, and I thought, oh, 3 years from now that's going to be so far. Like it's
yeah,
2007, it's going to take forever. Now it's 2024.
that's insane. It's insane, isn't it? Just how
Yeah.
fast time flew. And speaking of time flying, It's been way over 20 years now. Well, I shouldn't say way over. It's actually I think 22 years. 22 years since Spider-Man, the 2002 Sam Raimi film released. That's like our that's by the way, guys, that's like our holy grail
Oh yeah.
of like superhero movies. Like Tobey
Oh yeah.
Maguire Spider-Man, that's our holy grail. I'll have to do a whole
Oh.
episode on that one.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Cause I mean that changed so much in the
Oh
way of
gosh.
not just movies. I mean, okay, you had Blade. A lot of people are probably gonna
Huh.
knock me and be like, well, the first Marvel
And if you
movie
want
is
to count
Blade.
Spawn,
Yeah,
sure.
if you want to count Spawn, I mean, but those are before you had the Marvel Studios logo, even because those just had
Yeah.
the regular movie logos, and
Hmm.
then Blade just kicks in with his mom about to. Well, I don't know if I should spoil it, but
Well,
I
you'd be 20 years a little too late if you're spoiling it for
yeah,
somebody.
you know what, folks? If you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, but at the same time, this movie came out 20 years ago. This is your warning. Well, and because the way
Skip
it be,
ahead.
yeah, skip ahead a few seconds if you don't want to hear how you know what? I'm talking about the opening. What's to spoil in the opening, really? I mean, it's not like I'm giving away like crucial plot points or anything. So, you know what? We're just gonna go with it. Basically, the beginning of Blade. The reason I bring it up is because almost every Marvel movie now carries the iconic red Marvel logo that comes up on every Marvel movie now. But back in the day, before Spider-Man,
What was the
there
first
was
movie to have that logo?
Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
I think so. I
That
mean,
sounds
if
about
you want to
right.
fact check me, go ahead. But I mean, yeah.
I believe you.
Okay, cool. I think it was Spider-Man because I don't remember either of the any of the Blade movies carrying that.
Mm-mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think it was Spider-Man was the first one because Spider-Man I think is the first one that was produced by Marvel Studios.
Mm.
Um,
Yes.
and whatnot. And because Blade, I'm trying to remember what studio made Blade. I want to say
Is it
I want to
FX?
say
No.
Fox, but I don't know for sure.
Uh,
Let me Google it real quick. Who
Blade.
who what
Oops.
studio made Blade?
Apparently, I can't type with one hand, so I'll just
You're
leave
all
that to
good.
you.
New Line Cinema.
New Line Cinema. The
Yeah,
geniuses who gave us Nightmare on Elm Street
and Lord of the Rings.
and Lord of the Rings. Holy cannoli!
I mean,
What was their new name?
it's still New Line Cinema. Well,
Is it still?
they're under Time Warner now is the thing, from what I
Oh, that's what
understand.
it was.
And
Okay.
because Warner bought him out, and so
Gosh,
it's
yes.
kind of like Fox. They can still operate as their own entity, even though they're owned by Disney. So
Oh, okay, that makes sense then.
yeah. So I think that's the same with New Line, and that's why they can continue doing stuff. But yeah, no, New Line. Yeah, I think Nightmare on Elm Street's really what kicked off New Line, to be honest with you.
Let's see what else.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. Well, they basically saved Lord of the Rings because they were trying to kick that down to like one movie or something like that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's insane.
How funny. The studio is nicknamed the house that Freddy built because of the success of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, because before that, you never saw the New Line Cinema logo, and I don't know if it was different back then because that was the '80s, but
Well,
yeah,
actually, its earliest successes were from the 30s, Reefer Madness.
no way. They
Yeah,
made
yeah, I
Reefer
just read.
Madness.
Yeah, I just read that. Yeah,
Oh, I gotta go back and watch Reefer Madness one of
yeah.
these days again. That's a great, like, it's one of those movies that was supposed to be scary for the time being, but like, it's hilarious now.
It is scary. The acting's scary, and so is the colorization.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, nowadays it's tame. I mean, I laugh every time I watch it
Oh,
because you just
yeah.
got a bunch of people tripping out in a room in the 1930s in suits,
Yep,
just
yep.
having a good old time smoking some pot. It's
And then
hilarious.
someone murders.
Yep, and then that happens. Yeah, so that's really cool. Well, anyways, I think you guys have a pretty good idea now, of just kind of who we are and like, everything else, and I just gotta say, I'm really glad that that you and me connected on this level, and it's amazing to see just what the years have brought, and it was amazing, because like I said, when I stepped into NAU and I met you, it was like, wait a second, this is like this is like my variant. Like this is almost like an exact mirror of me, you know. It was shocking.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. Mostly because conversations that start with film or really with any sort of collecting, because
Hmm.
John and I are also avid collectors too of things that
Hmm.
we enjoy. Uh, I had met some people who just like movies but don't collect, or collect but don't like movies.
Yeah.
But the fact that we were able to find two people that do
Yeah.
both.
Yes. That was the crazy part. It's like, and we're both big on physical media. That's like a thing
Oh
that
yes,
like we will never stop crusading for, because the thing is, digital is all about convenience. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate it. I absolutely do. It is nice that you can have a service where you can just hit play and you're watching which, excuse me,
it
what you want to
serves a
watch.
purpose. It serves a purpose.
It definitely does, you know, and I don't hate it. I mean, it definitely helps and whatnot. But the thing is, the downside of it is, well, if you get a power outage, there goes your movie, there goes your show, there goes whatever you want to watch. You got a DVD player, boom, just pop it in, and you're right back to watching what you wanted to watch.
Also, though, in this economy with streaming platforms
Yeah.
basically taking advantage of
Oh, yep.
multi
Hmm.
profiles or multiple profiles, things like that. You know, you have platforms like Netflix price
Yep.
gouging things just so that people can
Yes.
share the same password. And, you know, almost, at least for myself, almost everyone I know
Hmm.
is subscribed to almost every platform. And if
Hmm.
every platform is upwards of $15, you're spending at least $75 a month sometimes on
Yes.
streaming platforms. And if, you know, you're trying to budget, you can technically cut those out and rely solely on your physical media.
Yeah.
So that's a bonus as well.
Yeah, because physical media is a one-time buy, you know. I mean, you
Hmm.
buy it and it's yours for good, and just take
Yeah,
care of it. Unlike me
yeah.
when I was young, I know I'm gonna incriminate myself a little bit. There's a lot of DVDs that have scratches that I messed up. I have Wii games that were scratched.
See, I
Little,
treated everything like it was a mini version of myself. Now my
yeah.
brothers, they're a different story. They ruined everything. That came
Damn.
into their hands when they were younger.
Dang. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, no, I was like your brothers then. I ruined a
That's
lot of
funny.
stuff when I was younger. But anyways, you know, one of the, you know, things that's crazy, you know, is um, you know, like you were saying, you know, we hold on to nostalgia, I feel like, because it just brings back such, you know, tender memories and stuff of when we were younger, you know, and the thing is, if as much as I appreciate where we are now, don't get me wrong. You know, I'm very content where I am in my life now. There is a small part of me that's just like, man, things were really good. Things were just really good back in the day. And I'm not saying that it's any different now, but it's just kind of like, it's kind of like you don't realize how good you actually had it. You know, it's that parable. You don't realize how good it was until it's gone. And I'm not,
It's also some sort of weird paradox that humans just go through. I mean,
yeah.
look at the film Midnight in Paris with Owen Wilson.
Oh, good example, perfect example.
He wished to go back in time, and every
Yeah.
time he went back in time, he met somebody who wished to go back even further because they
Yep.
were nostalgic about. So we're always gonna long for a time that was, even if
Hmm.
we didn't live it or we lived it. Heck, 20 years from now, I'm gonna long for right now. You know,
Yeah.
um,
I'll,
things are just always easier when you think about in hindsight because you already overcame the obstacles.
mhm.
As a child, things were not necessary. If anything, I'm happier now than I was as a child. The
Fair
only
enough.
reason
Yeah, yeah.
why I feel nostalgic of my childhood is
Mhm.
because of certain things that have formed and molded me,
Oh,
being the person that I am. Personally, I don't wish to be brought back to a time that I wasn't happy. I just wish that the things that were around me that made me happy continued to make me happy as they do now.
yeah.
Things evolve, people evolve. Of course, times were easier when we were children. We didn't have bills to pay.
We didn't have responsibilities.
We didn't have responsibilities. We didn't have to worry about certain social things. We didn't have to
Yep.
worry about expectations or whatever. And same thing when our parents were kids. But
Yo,
I sure as heck would not want to be born in the 1970s,
fair,
being
fair,
a Latino woman on the spectrum, you know?
fair. I get you.
So, as much as I like to long for times, I'm very content with how I am right now because even as a child, I couldn't afford my collection of Godzilla that I can afford now as an adult.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's very nice because you can teeter on both. You can love the past but also be able to live it as an adult if you allow yourself.
No, that's really great. I think a lot of what shapes us too is, obviously, like you said, when we're young, you make a very good point actually. When we were younger, we didn't have a lot of responsibilities. We didn't have to worry about the things we have to worry about now as adults, but at the same time, we have the freedom to choose how we live, and if we want to keep that past with us a bit, we absolutely can. It's
Absolutely.
it's not like, oh, the good old days are gone. You have to go in this whole new direction. Like the best part about it still, I think, is that we get to choose how we want that.
Absolutely. And I feel like the reason why a lot of people wish they lived back in, like, say, for example, like we were saying, they wish they lived in the 1950s or they wish they lived, it's because they have a skewed version of in their head of what it was at the time. In reality, it's exactly how it is now with the few different legalities and social rights and whatnot for people. But at the end of the day, everyone was still stressed. Everyone hated the newer generation. Everyone
Yeah.
longed to be the older generation. Everyone longed to be this pinnacle of wisdom for the upcoming youth. But at the end of the day, we're all just trying to survive.
No, absolutely. I mean, give you a perfect example. Look at the 50s.
I know most of the people that I know who say want to go back to the 50s are brown, and I'm like, do you understand where you would be in the social hierarchy if you were
Yeah.
in the 50s?
Yeah,
Like, you
not
would have zero rights.
yeah, no, absolutely. No, I hear you 100%, but like also the other thing I'm thinking about as well too is it's like um you had that you had that dichotomy of the older generation not liking the rock and roll generation, looking down on figures like Elvis Presley, and whatnot
Absolutely.
and such.
Thinking that's too revolutionary and too sexual and too this and too that.
Exactly. Like nowadays, Elvis's moves, it's tame compared to what artists are doing now. I mean,
Oh yeah,
but for the time, I mean, that was big because nobody was doing that
absolutely.
beforehand,
No, absolutely.
and whatnot. But no, I hear you also with the social hierarchy, it's kind of like, things would have just been very, very different, and
No,
especially even me
absolutely.
as an indigenous person,
Absolutely.
it'd be the same thing, or even, also being a bit Jewish, I mean, back then,
Yeah.
there
Well,
was,
especially in the 1950s. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, because you're just coming off of World War II at that point, so yeah, and
Exactly.
everything that went on,
Exactly.
and even though, yeah, you live in America, I mean, there's dark stories about anti-Semitism in this
No,
country that we're
absolutely.
not going
And
to get into right now, but they exist.
absolutely. And every generation who feels that their generation something ended or whatever, and this is coming after saying that we didn't grow up on cell phones, but we didn't. This is
Yeah,
a little bit different from
sure.
that point. But uh a lot of people just aren't happy with what they have currently, and then they appreciate it
Yeah.
later, you know?
Yeah, it's like the old saying, you don't know what you have until it's gone, really, or until it's
Yeah.
too late. And I think a lot of
But
it is
it's
just
only gone if you let it, though.
good, great point. Great point. Yeah, absolutely. It's only gone. Yeah, exactly. If you let it go. But the reason I think a lot of people let it go is because they don't realize in the moment that what they had, if they let it go, I should say, because not
Mm,
everybody, people like you and me obviously don't let it go. But like, if people let it go, I think it's because they're not thinking at the time that, hey, this might be relevant down the road, or maybe I'll have a longing to go
true.
back to this. Because like for
True.
instance, um, you know, one thing I think I really took for granted when I was young was the fact that, I didn't have to really think about a lot of things. I just had to be a kid, and I think that's one of the biggest things around childhood, is just you realize, wait, you're like, oh, I can't wait to be a grown up, I can't wait to not have anybody tell me what to do. I can't wait to have this. And then
Mm,
you're like, wait a second, there goes my childhood. There go the times where I could be careless and free. And you're like, I'm an adult now. Yes, I can make the choices for myself, but I also have a lot of responsibilities, coming back to that
mm,
same point, and such. And so
mm-hmm.
that's kind of the other thing I see too and whatnot. And but again, I agree, I'm definitely content where I'm at right now. I've made peace with it, obviously, and you just got to live out the cards that you're dealt, and you just got to make the best of it, really.
Yes. Um, this is a perfect segue into a question I wanted you to answer,
Sure.
mostly for context for everybody,
Yeah,
what
absolutely. What's up?
exactly it is that you enjoy collecting, what it is that sparked your interest in it, and how you basically started.
Perfect question. I was actually going to ask you the same thing as well. So, to answer your question, I think what really got me into collecting was just kind of, this is going to sound really weird, but doing it without really thinking about it, if that makes sense. Like a lot of the stuff in my collection is stuff that's built up over the years. That some of it's stuff I got as a child that I still have. Some of it is stuff I've just collected through the years, like my vinyl collection. Obviously I have a big love for vinyl records and listening to music the analog way and whatnot. But I think as I started to grow up, it was just realizing that, and it comes back to your point again, having the freedom to be able to purchase it and not have anybody tell me, oh, you can't get that, you can't do this. It's just like, oh, wait, I can actually start building a collection. And, also, as you mentioned, I'm also on the spectrum. So, one big thing about, and I'm not trying to put this as a stereotype, obviously, because it would be wrong and terrible of me to say it is, because it's not. But a lot of us like to collect things. I've noticed that with a lot of my friends also who are outside of my life as well, they like to collect. But again, collecting has nothing to do with that either. But it's just a little something I've noticed.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a funny coincidence.
it's a funny coincidence. Exactly. I'm not saying that it's a part of it. I'm just saying like
Yeah,
it's just something I've noticed. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
forgive me. I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to say they coincide at all. So just to make
No,
that clear.
no, they. I think part of it um has to do with, I don't want to call them compulsions, but
Okay.
sort of obsessive things that certain
Oh,
people on
sure.
the spectrum do. I myself am definitely one of those people, you know.
Likewise.
You find something, or you learn about something, and then you that's all you obsess about
Oh
for
yeah.
however long it lasts.
Yeah.
Um
And for us, it's nostalgia.
yes, absolutely. And the things that make up our childhood,
Yeah.
well that were popular during our childhood that we happen to like
Oh,
at the same time.
absolutely, absolutely. But to finish answering your question, I think a lot of it was just finding the freedom to be able to do it and just realizing, wait, I still like these things. I still like
Mm,
DVDs. I still like vinyl records. I think vinyl actually sounds a lot better than a lot of digital tracks. I mean, yeah, I got
mm.
Spotify and Spotify's convenient, but when I'm at home, I'll put a record on.
Well, that's why albums were created the way that they were. They were
Yeah.
created to listen in the sequential or the chronological order that they had them in,
Hmm.
and in a way that you experience the album as a whole story rather than individual singles or whatever. I mean, yes, you have singles and whatnot, but the idea of the album was to listen to it
Hmm.
as an entire thing. Sorry.
No, no, you're good. You're absolutely good. No, no. No, absolutely. But I think for me, it was just more getting the freedom and just finding the love for a lot of those
Mm,
things. And I think finally I just started saying, hey, you know, get a paycheck. It's like, okay, I took care of everything I need to take care of. I got a little left over. Okay, well, I got enough for a DVD. I'm gonna go buy a DVD,
yeah,
or I'm gonna go
yeah.
buy an album, or I'm gonna go buy a video game, or I'm gonna go buy a book. I mean, I got
Hmm.
my copy of The Godfather behind me, and whatnot.
Mwah.
So, and whatnot. Speaking of which, we are big fans of The Godfather, so
Oh,
expect to hear a lot of Godfather references. We'll
absolutely.
have to do an episode on the Godfather series one day, because I mean,
Absolutely.
talk about revolutionary. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So, and now I'm gonna turn the question on you, if that's cool. What got you into collecting really, and into wanting to have like all the things you do? Because you have a lot more than I do. Because you collect more than just, I think, VHS tapes and DVDs and stuff. You actually have collectibles as well.
Well, I collect quite a few things. I collect gaming consoles, I collect
Right.
DVDs, Blu-rays, VHSs,
Hmm.
cassettes, certain books. I collect comics, graphic novels,
Hmm.
action figures, Godzilla action figures, Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Batman action figures. Did I say vinyl? Yes,
I
vinyl.
think I don't yeah.
I collect Lego. Um,
Legos. Let's go.
yeah, yeah. I collect a lot of things. But the thing that I've collected the longest would have to be my VHSs
Oh
because
yeah.
a lot of them were passed down to be from my grandfather, who was also an avid collector of media, physical media, such as VHS and
Yeah.
vinyl 8 tracks, things like that. So I
Oh, he
got
had
it.
8 tracks?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. That's
Um,
cool.
he had a collection of those things. Unfortunately, I think what sort of influenced my obsessive collecting
Mhm.
was my grandfather lost his entire collection in a fire, in a house
Oh.
fire. So for me, it was
Hmm.
like, if I collect everything and I take care of it and I
Yeah.
take care of my space in my home, I'll have this forever so I can pass down to my children if I end up having children or whatever.
Hmm.
Um and the idea for me was, if I can collect everything that I love, I'll never lose it. And I
Hmm.
think I'm still in that, because sometimes I'll collect something, like say a DVD, I'll probably watch one other time, but I'll collect it because in my head it's like, oh, I have it now. It's never gonna leave me, type of
Hmm.
thing.
No, absolutely. I hear you on that one. That's a big one. That's really a big
Yeah,
one, and it's crazy to just think about, that um as you mentioned, and obviously, it's crazy to think that, that a lot of collections, can get lost in that way, and then you
yeah,
realize the value around a lot of it. And I think
hmm,
that's kind of how I felt too. Obviously, I didn't lose any of my stuff through the experiences that your grandfather did, and I hope it never happens. But at the same time, I
me
do like,
too. Knock
yeah,
on wood.
knock on wood. You know what? My desk is wood. I got you.
I think this. No, I think this is plastic. So I'll just piggyback off of yours.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, yeah. Watch this not even be real wood. I mean, I guess we'll know once the episode's done. But anyways, what I was gonna say is, what I think a lot of it, for me at least, came more through when you're young, kind of taking it for granted and not really taking care of it because you're like, oh, it's my parents who bought it, and you're not really thinking about where it's going to be down the road. Because as a kid, you're just thinking in the present, and then once you start growing
Mm,
up, you start thinking more long term. And I think had I
gotcha.
had that longer term mentality, I probably would have thought differently. But now I absolutely take care of everything. Um,
Gotcha.
I
Yes,
I
I even still have some of my childhood, like, consoles, DVDs, and VHSs, because I was just so prim and proper with all my belongings.
Yeah, no, I hear you 100%. When for all of you out there to hear this sad story, my VHS player gave out over the summer this year. I think
RIP to all the VCRs in heaven right now.
yes, yes, rest in peace to all the VHS tapes that gave or tape players that gave out and VHS tapes that gave out because I mean, as you remember, one of the cool things I was able to do was not long ago at Goodwill, they were giving away a bunch of tapes, and actually they had one from my local library that was given away a
That's
long time
right.
ago.
Yes.
And it was actually, believe it or not, folks, this was the very first thing I ever took out of the library with my own library card. Was a copy of the VHS tape of the beginner book reading series of Are You My Mother?
That is
And
crazy.
it was insane, and I look at it and I recognize the library symbol, the area it clicks, and then I take the tape out and it still has the same sticker on it from back in the day, and I'm going, holy crap, this is the first thing I took out. So I didn't even question. I took it to the counter. I'm buying that. I
The
mean,
luck, though. The luck.
I know it was insane. I didn't even realize it at first, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the real deal. I'm just like, oh man, it's insane.
I would
So
have framed it.
yeah, no. Oh, you know what? That's actually not a bad idea. Maybe if I can find a frame for a VHS tape like that, maybe I will frame it. Because I
Ah,
mean, it
well,
doesn't work.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
maybe
it's
next birthday.
maybe next
I'll remember
birthday.
that for your next birthday.
Oh, I appreciate that. I gotta remember. I gotta remember for your next birthday too. I gotta remember. I gotta remember to get you something as well. So I don't know. Maybe for you, it'll be something Godzilla related or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see when we get there. But no, absolutely. Well, that's really good. I think we got a good establishment, you know. I mean, I think a lot of what shaped us is just our own experiences, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I also
Awesome.
wrote down in my
Oh
notes
yeah,
something
what's up?
else that shaped me.
Yeah, what's up?
Um, I had the privilege of growing up in Tucson, Arizona.
Okay.
Um, Whereas a lot of people they don't have access to like even today they don't
Mhm.
have access to like independent cinemas or say like mom and pop video shops, and Tucson, Arizona still
Oh,
has that.
that's
So that's
right. Yep.
something that influenced me growing up, but also continues to fuel my love and fervor for everything media. Mostly because a lot of things were filmed here in Tucson, and
Oh yeah.
Tucson is like this mega hub of just culture in southern Arizona.
Oh,
You know,
100%. Yeah, yeah.
to just to name
Yeah.
a few films that were filmed here.
Mhm.
Can't Buy Me Love was filmed here. Revenge
Okay.
of the Nerds, Tombstone, Three
Tombs
Amigos.
Wait,
Yeah,
Tombstone?
yes, yes.
How did I not realize that? Because I think a lot of yeah, that would make
I think at
sense.
Old Tucson.
No
A lot of
way.
John Wayne movies too. So
Right.
Tucson has always been just like this hub of like Western film and
Yeah.
just film in general.
Mhm.
And it just made sense that, someone like me would spawn out of a place like this. You had
Sure.
an independent cinema, the loft that I've been going to since I was in my early teens, playing
Right.
movies that you couldn't even get in these in Harkins or Cinemark or whatever,
No,
that you would have to
absolutely.
like really dig deep for and stuff. So
Wow.
that's something else that has influenced and fueled my love for the media and collecting and stuff like that too.
Perfect. Perfect. That's great. I mean, yeah, unfortunately, so I grew up in northern Arizona. I grew up in Flagstaff. So,
A little smaller town than
a
Tucson
little
because
bit
Tucson's still
smaller
kind of
than
small.
yeah, well, Tucson's still bigger though than
Oh,
Flag, a
it's
lot bigger.
massive.
It's
It's
massive.
massive compared to Flagstaff, yeah, but compared to
Yeah.
like Phoenix or a big city, yeah, it's tiny.
Yeah, but even Flag back in the day, I mean, we had a lot of those. I mean, we unfortunately we didn't have any like really independent cinema. The only closest thing I think we had was at the mall. There was like a little theater that they had two theaters and it would play two features. Each
Really? Okay.
one of them, yeah. And it was down by okay, so I'm trying to think. So there's like a food court in the mall
Hmm.
and you probably know this because you've been up here plenty of times. I mean, we
I
drove.
lived across the street from that mall
You
for like
lived
eight
across the
years.
street from that mall.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And like it's crazy to think about, you know, but back in the day, so you know where the food court is if you go down that
Hmm.
way, kind of by where the bathrooms are now at that mall.
Hmm.
There used to be a little small cinema that would play like two movies.
Really?
I'm not
So
even
that
joking.
Harkins is new then, the one that's across the street from the mall?
Yes.
That one's new.
It,
Oh, okay.
it, it's fairly new. I mean,
Fairly
they
new.
moved it out there. I want to say maybe almost going on like eight years now. Maybe I'm just spitballing, but I could be
Mm.
wrong. I have to look into that more. But when that theater moved across town, I remember because the theater used to be on the
By the
side
Home
closer to
Depot.
NAU. Yeah,
Yeah.
it used to be by Home Depot. Yeah, in that area.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, they move it out east. And I think a lot of it's because they wanted to grow it. They wanted to get more people in the theater, and obviously you can put a bigger place out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And they
Uh,
ended up moving the MVD over to
Yeah.
the.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. And yeah, it was a sad day, but I mean, you know, it had to happen. And you know me, I'm big on movies. I'll drive 100 miles if I have to go watch a movie.
I had zero complaints because I was a 30
You were
second drive. I,
literally you could walk. You
oh,
could
I
be like
could, but it was always so cold.
fair. I mean, you got a lot of wind out
And
there.
I was very lazy.
Yeah. I mean, literally, you could leave your place 2 minutes before showtime, get to the theater, and you'd still be
Get
on time.
popcorn. Get popcorn.
Get
Go to the
popcorn
bathroom.
and you'd
Play a game
still
or
be
two of
on
Pac
time.
Man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Play a game or two of Pac-Man or the Terminator Salvation.
I never got to play that because I was like six tokens.
Oh, yeah,
I
no, I
only
hear
played
you.
things that
I
were
hear your
one
pain.
token.
Yeah, yeah, no, I hear you. It used to be a four token game, but then they upped it to
Oh,
six for whatever.
inflation, it'll get you. Even
Absolutely.
Terminator Salvation.
Absolutely, it sure will. So, yeah. So, anyways, another thing that I kind of wanted to bring up on this pilot here is a lot of us, when we talk about nostalgia, we usually tie it a lot also to like a lot of memories or things that were kind of big around our eras as well. Things that, maybe trends or maybe things that were, that were big in scale compared to maybe some of the other things, on the I'm trying to think about how I can word it. Basically, I guess the way I'm trying to put it is, you have certain things that might have happened, certain events, certain shows, movies, whatnot that came out that really kind of shaped not only who you are, but the generation that you came from, you know?
Yes.
And I guess the question I have for you, this is one that I have for you. Do you have any of those kind of memories of either trends or just memories of like things that were big in your generation or anything like that? Or in our generation, I should say, I guess.
Um, it's difficult because a lot of the things that sort of peaked in consumer interest when we were younger,
Yeah.
they had already been around for a few years. It just
Okay, fair.
happened that they were either upgraded to a certain extent or whatever.
Mhm.
The things that I'm thinking about are, say, like Lego and Hot Wheels.
Oh,
When I
good
was a
ones.
kid, those were huge. Obviously, they had been around for a lot longer than
Yeah.
the early 2000s, but that and then for example, the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2,
Oh yeah.
um the Game Boy, um
The GameCube.
the GameCube, yes,
A lot of
which
those.
sparked a lot of innovation when it came to shows. Say Drake and Josh, they did the Game Sphere or something like that. There were a lot of
That's
knockoffs
right.
of the GameCube. That's how big it was.
Mhm.
That's how much it impacted us culturally. That even in movies and shows, we made fake versions of that. Which I mean, to this day, you still don't really see. But the GameCube was definitely one of them.
No, GameCube was,
Um,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I would say what we really saw was the rise and semi fall of Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, and Cartoon Network,
Mhm. Good.
which
Yep.
basically encompassed almost everyone's uh, media consumption as a child.
Yep.
And I'm not talking about PBS right now because PBS I feel like was still kind of indie,
Oh,
whereas
sure.
more people were gearing more towards cable viewing.
Yep.
Um, but off the top of my head, I think those would be the biggest ones. Obviously, we're not going to get into events or anything. I mean, global
Sure.
events, the only thing that I could think of that affected every realm,
Yeah.
TV, would be 9/11. Um,
Absolutely.
I'm
I mean,
thinking of the Arthur episode, or the comic, the Marvel, or the Amazing Spider-Man comic,
mhm.
or just the releases of shows that had some sort of, I guess, message that tied to the terrorist attack.
No, absolutely. I think 9/11 changed a lot of things in terms of
Yeah.
media and in terms of um shows and how we just kind of viewed life, I think, and it's crazy to
Hmm.
think that we can say that we were alive for something
Yeah.
that massive. Because I mean, you have people that say, "Oh, I lived through World War II." I have people who,
Hmm.
I lived through Vietnam. I lived
Hmm.
through the '60s.
Hmm.
The hippie era. I lived through, the '70s, the disco era. And all
The
that.
social rights
The
movements.
social rights movement. Yeah, absolutely. Stuff like that. Living through some pretty good, but some pretty grim experiences as well.
Yes,
And
changing for sure.
yeah, and then all of a sudden you're kind of like, well, what did I live through? And the first one that always jumps out to me is 9/11, and you're just like,
Yeah.
wait a second,
Well,
like that
think
happened in our
about it.
lifetime.
Yeah, think about it also. Like, we grew up on movies from our parents' ages and on up until like the late 90s
Hmm.
of, the guy chasing the girl in
Yeah.
the airport and she's about to enter her gate. Or say in Home Alone, they're able to make it through the gate without any inspection or any problem or whatever, just movies, romantic movies, things like that, where the entire ending or
Yeah.
plot ending had to do with them going to the gate or meeting at the gate or in an
Hmm.
airport or whatever. And now that's just completely changed.
I
Also, people's sensitivities when it comes to terrorism and stuff like that.
absolutely no, I hear you. I can actually give you a perfect example of that.
Please.
You've seen Die Hard, right?
It's a sin. I have not, but I'm watching it this Christmas. I
Come
know.
on.
I know.
Come on. Oh, by the way, folks, don't even try and start the argument with me that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. It is a Christmas movie. End of story. That's all I'm saying. On
That's
on
all
this
I've ever
show,
heard.
it is. Yeah, it's absolutely a Christmas movie, and you'll see. Okay, so I won't spoil anything for you, but I'll just say there's a moment where John McClane, Bruce Willis's character, is literally getting off a plane and he's packing a Beretta.
What is that?
It's a type of pistol. So it's like
Oh, which obviously you would never do because they don't allow weapons.
yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, because in the movie there's a scene, he's talking with this person about um his fear of well, it's not fear of flying, but kind of fear of traveling. He tells him, well, I'm not gonna tell you what he tells him because I mean I want you to experience a part of it. But once they're getting ready to get off the plane, he goes to reach up above to grab his carry-on, and it's in one of those sling holders that you kind of wear
Oh,
almost like
got you.
suspenders. And the guy kind of looks at me and goes, "It's okay, I'm a cop." And
Okay,
whatnot. So
okay.
so that was kind of, I mean, obviously he's an officer, air marshals I think still do that, but I mean obviously
Yeah.
they're regulated to do that because that's their whole goal is to protect people on a flight.
Yeah.
But basically the only reason I brought that up is because it ties really well in with the point you were just making.
No, exactly, exactly. It's something that you would never really see nowadays because it doesn't make sense in our current culture and also climate.
Yeah, no,
Even
absolutely.
going back to Spider-Man 2 or a
Yeah.
Spider-Man from 2002,
Yeah.
originally it was supposed to come out in 2001
Yeah.
and they had to literally change a few scenes from it because it involved the Twin Towers.
Yeah, actually, the OG trailer, the
The
OG
trailer.
teaser, I remember you, yeah, you remember that. The OG
Yep.
teaser had a sequence with Spider-Man literally. There's these guys, I think they were like robbing a bank. They get on the
Mhm.
roof and they leave in a helicopter, and
Mhm.
Spider-Man ties them between the World Trade Center.
Yep. Yep.
And that was a big shot. And in the
And
film,
that
that
was released in June. That trailer was like released I think June
June
that summer.
2001.
Yep.
I
That
remember
the
seeing
summer
that because
before, yeah.
that actually came on TV. I remember. I think it was
Mhm.
the Super Bowl of 2001. They said we have a really exciting feature coming up featuring one of Marvel's greatest superheroes, and then it just went to that, and then they played that teaser. And obviously, I was too
Mm.
young to comprehend what Spider-Man was. I think I was only like 3 or 4. No, I was 3 at the
Mm.
time because my birthday was in June, so I would have been
Oh,
3 at the time. So I just kind of remember seeing that, and
oh,
whatnot. And
yes.
obviously, I didn't comprehend how big of a moment it was. I'm just like, oh, it's just a teaser for a movie. And of course, after they revealed Spider-Man, they were like, okay, it's for Spider-Man coming. I think it's summer of 2002.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was just like, wow, that's cool. And yeah, it's insane to see just how a lot of these events in our lives too can shape our perception of not just nostalgia, but
Mhm.
just the experiences we lived.
No,
And
absolutely.
whether they're tragic
Absolutely.
or great, they everything
They
impacts us.
affected yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
And another,
Absolutely.
yeah, and is crazy. And I guess if you don't mind, I can speak for myself on some of those
Please.
things.
Please.
Obviously, we have the rise. Probably one of the biggest ones is the rise of YouTube. The
Oh,
rise of
that's
online
right.
video. The only reason I bring
Yeah.
that up is because when we were young, YouTube is not what it is was not what it is today. It
No.
was not. That YouTube back in the day was just creating videos for fun because you wanted to.
It was an archive of everyone's experience with a camera.
Yes.
And some people took it a little farther than that to make sketches and
Mhm.
stuff like that and music or different edits. And then now, how would
Mhm.
you describe it now?
Now, it's really kind of, for lack of a better term, commercialized.
100%.
And the reason I say that
100.
is because now there's people who make a living by doing YouTube videos, which I think is great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, one of my really good friends, Plain Rock 124, if you guys know who that is on YouTube. One of the biggest well, I shouldn't say yeah, he is one of the biggest channels. He has over, I think, 2 million subscribers now, and
Wow.
he's still, going, and that's how he makes his living, and he's incredible. But by the way, we got to have him on the show one of these days.
Yes,
I would
yes.
like to have him on the show, especially to talk about a lot of those different things. And he's big on Nintendo too. So I mean, if we talk about
Ah,
Nintendo sometime, maybe I'll bring him on for a little bit so we
yes.
can talk about that. But no, I mean his whole thing is, and believe it or not, you know what he does? His whole thing is smashing expensive items that don't work anymore.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And surprisingly, he's built a whole following off of that. And
Oh, yes.
yeah, shout out to you, my friend. I mean, he's a great guy.
Yes.
I love him and whatnot. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it's very commercialized because now you can make a living, whereas back then it was mostly about fun, and you didn't really get those kind of channels because you had to get partnered back in the day.
Well, yes, actually, you could make a living, but it was on your terms. It was on the
Yeah.
ads that you wanted to do. It was on subscription memberships.
Hmm.
It wasn't on. It wasn't on. Oh, how many videos of mine can I get monetized?
Yeah.
How can I act or portray myself in order to get monetized? Now it's very commercially fake.
Yeah.
Whereas back then you could be your weird self and still make money off of it.
I mean, look at YouTubers like you have Fred. Do you remember Fred?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up
Yeah,
on Fred. I had a
Fred.
Fred shirt.
I mean, Fred was literally the biggest YouTuber back in the day. It was like, holy mackerel, like,
Yeah.
it's just
No, absolutely.
I mean, he had the most subscribers for a long time. And then here comes Smosh, and Smosh was huge,
Smosh. And then
because
Smosh TV.
then you have
They
Smosh TV,
branched
yeah.
out into their own.
Yeah, and I mean, they're still
And
going to
then
this day,
you had
but
like
you go
you
ahead.
had Shane Dawson.
Yeah,
You
before
had
he went crazy.
before his controversy, yes.
Yeah.
And you had first gameplays. And
Yeah,
then now
PewDiePie.
everyone's either doing PewDiePie, exactly.
And then
Um,
now you have people like obviously Mr. Beast, which is insane.
yeah. Yeah.
I
I
don't
love Mr.
even really
Beast.
know, huh?
Yeah, I love Mr. Beast. He's really cool.
I do, but like I'm not as big on him as I was when I was younger, if that makes sense.
No, that
And
makes
Mhm.
I'm always late to things. I'm always
Yeah,
late. So I discovered him like 2 years ago.
yeah, and I mean like I'm just kind of saying like kind of from where we were to like where we are now. I mean, this man is making like a whole enterprise on YouTube
Yeah.
and
Well,
whatnot.
it's because we're sort of going back into reality TV, but on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like reality TV sort of game shows sort of died off for a little bit,
Yep.
and now and it's even far fetched to say that, but now there's sort of a resurgence because everything is like a challenge now. You
Hmm.
have so many big YouTubers doing challenges and stuff like that, so it's sort of like mimicking what once was game shows and stuff like that.
No,
Like that's
absolutely.
one of the reasons why he's one of the biggest content creators is because he has a platform that is one entertaining, but is
Hmm.
also in a way one could argue philanthropic.
Yeah, and I one of the big trends I remember when I was young was okay, this is one that's gonna take me back a little bit, and this is one that's gonna give me a big sense of nostalgia. Do you remember the when everyone was doing the ice bucket challenge? The
Yes,
ALS
yes,
one, yeah.
yes,
And everyone
yes,
was getting challenged, and they're like, "Oh, if you do it, and you won't have to donate, or like donate if you don't do it in this amount of time." Just like, man, I made donations as
yeah,
well. It's kind of like, come on, if you're
yeah,
gonna do this thing, do it, but do it with the right intentions. And that was the other thing
yes.
too, is we saw kind of the rise of when trends became more than just having fun, and then about maybe I don't want to say exploiting
It
necessarily,
no,
but
it's
in
being proactive.
yeah, it's being
It's
proactive. Yeah, but kind of going down that route of like, is it really
mhm.
good natured,
Oh, I see.
or is it just because you want to get views, And that's kind of
Gotcha.
what's becoming too, because I mean now you have things like clickbait, like you have somebody going like, we need to talk, and then they introduce, what's up guys, how we doing? And you're like, oh come on.
No, or they're like, I did something horrible, and then
Yeah.
at the very end, they're like, I forgot to pay a parking ticket.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
like, you're like,
Yeah.
I clicked for a 30-minute video for you to tell me I don't know. Or you have like apology videos and stuff like that.
Oh man, we I could go on a whole thing about apology videos
Yeah.
right now.
Oh yeah.
That's oh my gosh, that
Yeah.
oh boy. But
Yeah.
anyways, no, it's crazy cool to see what we've accomplished and it's crazy cool to see what we are going to accomplish. And I think that's the beauty of nostalgia is it also leaves that door open because I think
Absolutely.
there's going to be some things now that we're going to consider nostalgic, maybe like you said 20 years from now.
Heck, I'm pretty sure laptops are going to cease to exist the way that we did, the way that we know them now, and we're going to be like, oh, remember back in the day where we could just open up our laptop and type, 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 and
Tablets are going to
now
take over the world.
tablets or some mind reading AI crap. I don't know.
Hmm.
And then sometimes I'll grab a notebook and I'll be like, ah, how nice it is to just write. I'm like, I can write whenever I want.
Absolutely. I hear you 100% right there.
Yeah.
It gets good stuff. Well, man, I'm enjoying
Yeah.
this, but I think as you know, all good things unfortunately
Must come to an
have
end.
to come to an end. And so, one thing I would like to ask you before we start rounding it out, though, is aside from just all of the all of what we talked about, what are some things you're hoping to maybe collect or get in the future from the nostalgic past?
Oh wow, that's a fantastic question. I wish I came more prepared. Um,
It's all good.
well, I think it would be I think it would be really cool to be able to collect. It's not something that I want to add to my collection, as in I haven't collected it before, but I would like to expand my collection when it comes to the type of gaming systems that I have. I think it would be really amazing to,
Okay.
and this comes with obviously monetary changes in my life and stuff, as
Yeah.
saving money or whatever.
Sure, sure.
Or if I win the lottery, probably like
Hey,
get.
I'm betting on you. I'm betting on you. I'm betting on you. I'm
Thank you.
betting on you, sister.
Thank you.
Yep.
I would say probably like collecting the gaming consoles that I don't currently have that I used to play as a child,
Okay.
like the GameCube, some
Ah, the GameCube.
Nintendo DS's, PS
Oh,
Vita, stuff like
I
that.
forgot. I okay. You guys gonna think I'm stupid. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, but
No, please.
I forgot that the DS was a thing.
Yep,
I
Nintendo
mean,
DS.
I know
And then,
y'all gonna. Yeah, go
did you
ahead.
ever have the Nintendo DSi where you could take pictures and
I didn't
draw
have
and
any
stuff?
of them, to be honest.
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
the only DS I ever played with were either my friends or if I was at a store, like Target or something, and I would just like, be messing around with it. That's the only time I mess with a DS, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would collect that, and then I'd get like an N64 and stuff, and I would probably get
Ooh.
into like more advanced gaming. Like I would even collect a PC or get a PC, even build my own, so that in the
Ooh,
future I
yeah.
could say, "Oh, I had a PC," you know.
There you
But as
go.
of now, there isn't really anything in my collection that I need. It's just, things that I've thought about here and there. Obviously, I'm
Very
always
cool.
going to be expanding all of my collection, but that's something
Oh
I would
yeah.
like to focus more on. What about
No,
yourself?
absolutely. Oh, for me. Oh, that's a yeah, I'm glad you asked. Yeah, I think, just expanding on the collections I have right now. Obviously, I love vinyl. I think video game would be a cool one to get into
Mm,
eventually because I mean, I had for the longest time I had a PlayStation 2 and obviously as many of you know out there, the PlayStation 2 is the console that basically beat the entire gaming war. I mean, that's the highest selling console unit of all time. I don't know, do you know how I was gonna ask you, do you know how many units that the PS2 has sold?
I don't really know anything about the PS2, mostly because I never owned one. I owned everything PlayStation except for the PS2, believe it or not.
Gotcha. I have it right here if you want to hear it.
Please.
The PlayStation 2 sold over 160 million units and still hasn't been surpassed.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would think that that was surpassed by the Wii, but that's crazy.
I think the Wii
The
got
Nintendo,
close.
Nintendo, they know how to make a good gaming system though.
The Wii got close, and the reason being is
Yeah,
because the Wii was revolutionary.
it really
Um,
was.
and the thing with the PlayStation 2 is that was really the first console that gave way to the rise of being able to combine DVD and video games. So they marketed it almost as a way to kind of like if you want to get your parents in on it. Oh, guess what? We don't need to buy a DVD player. What if you just buy me a PS2 and you can watch your DVDs on my PS2?
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Yeah, because the
I didn't even
PlayStation
know
1
that
couldn't
the
do that.
PS2. No,
Yeah.
PlayStation 1 could not. I didn't know that it started with the PS2.
It
That's
started with
awesome.
it started with the PS2 because they used DVD as their or the same format that DVDs used for their games, and that's how they were able to be compatible.
Gotcha.
And then PlayStation 3
Mm.
did the same thing, but with Blu-ray.
Ah, yes, yes.
Yeah, and that's why
That I do have.
and I think that's why PlayStation's been winning the console war every time because they're always innovating.
Yes,
And same with
play
Nintendo.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
PlayStation is very user friendly, as I've stated before to you.
Yep.
It also is definitely great for an entertainment system too, not just gaming. And I feel like Xbox is more towards gaming than it is entertainment system.
Yeah.
Because the PlayStation, uh, my only complaint about the PlayStation is that it only allows you 5 chances to change your region. That's the
I've
only
heard
complaint
that.
I've ever had. That's the only
Hmm.
ever complaint that I've ever had about PlayStation,
Yep.
specifically the PlayStation 5. But that
Fair.
is a-okay because I would rather do that than have to put batteries in my controller.
I hear you.
No,
No,
I'm
I
kidding.
hear
I
you.
was throwing shade. I was throwing shade.
No, exactly. But no, for real, I hear you. I mean, I won't lie. It is annoying. I mean, because
Yeah.
the thing is, okay, I'm an Xbox guy mostly because I am huge on Halo.
PlayStation.
Halo, yeah, exactly. Now this is where we have opposite views right here. Is you're a PlayStation person, I'm an Xbox person. So every time that we have this conversation, it's always going to be lopsided in some way. But anyways, to get back on point, um, the thing is with I feel like with Xbox is Xbox was designed by Microsoft, and I think they designed it more as especially the OG, as more of an entertainment system.
Hmm.
They really designed it
That's
as
fair.
an entertainment system. And so because of it, I mean, you have a lot of cool stuff. I mean, Halo came out of Xbox. I think Gears of War came
Hmm.
out of that and whatnot. But PlayStation's just always been innovating. And I'm not saying Microsoft hasn't, but Microsoft always seems to kind of follow in the footsteps, I've noticed, of
Mm.
other consoles and
Mm.
whatnot.
Something I
But
will say about Microsoft is that they've created a brand of themselves that doesn't necessarily cater to others, and I feel like PlayStation, depending on how you view it, it can be controversial because they listen so much to their fan base.
yep,
Whereas Microsoft is like, we're doing exactly what we want to be doing. And PlayStation's over here like, okay, what can we do to make you happy so that you can keep buying? So that you can buy
absolutely.
that PS5 Plus or Pro or whatever.
Whatever they have now. Yeah.
So
It's
yeah.
crazy for sure.
That's something I appreciate of Microsoft though. They know and they have their identity and they know who they are.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think this was really good for a first episode. I think
Agreed.
we covered a lot. We got through what we wanted to, and you folks out there got to know not just a little bit about us, but just kind of the foundations we were bought on and a lot of the stuff you're going to be hearing on the podcast. And what with this show, I think what we're really hoping to do is share some of our past with you while also looking at some other pasts that maybe some of you might have lived, or maybe some of you might have experienced that we unfortunately didn't get to experience, or maybe fortunately, depending on how you would describe it. But yeah, I think it's really good. Ramona, you want to give us a little update on what's to come on this show? Maybe just a little teaser.
Absolutely, John. So, what you have to, as an audience, look forward to from us is talking about the resurgence of VHS and vinyl.
Hmm.
As avid collectors, we are in this realm, so we know the ins and outs of what it takes to be a collector, and we'll talk about how that has basically come back up in our generation in the 2020s. We'll also talk about a very revolutionary film, one that I hold near and dear to my heart, Citizen Kane, Orson
Ooh,
Welles,
yep.
along with his other works as well, say War of the Worlds.
Oh
We're
yes.
also gonna get into the monster verse, so talk about everything
Let's go.
kaiju related. Whoop whoop. So if you're into
Um,
Godzilla, if you're into any of kaiju lore or just monsters in general, definitely stick around for that. We're going to be talking about firsts. We could talk about our own firsts and cultural media firsts, say our first games, our first DVDs that we've purchased, things like
Yeah.
that. Get to know a little bit more of the things that influence us to be who we are today. And lastly, but also not limited to, because this list can change. We could add so much to it and whatnot. This is just a little sneak peek, but also video rental store overviews and exactly
Ooh,
how that shaped our Friday and Saturday night. And
absolutely.
we'll try to get some awesome guests on this show. My hope is that I can reach out to the local um, video store owner here in my town and have them on the show with us to talk
Oh,
to us
that would be
about,
cool. That would be
yes,
cool. That
to
would be
talk to us
amazing.
about how they changed the community and how they continue to preserve the importance of physical media in this day and age, in this age of streaming.
Mhm.
And yes, that is just a sneak peek of what's to come. There's so much more we want to cover: TV shows, games, comics, everything, everything under the
Experiences.
sun, experiences. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
we look
because
forward to talking about all this.
absolutely. I mean, we could even get into stuff about like, the shopping malls we grew up in. We could get
Oh
into
yeah,
some of the stores that no longer exist now that kind of shaped us.
absolutely.
Toys R Us, KB Toys, places like that. Old school Walmart before it became
Yeah,
crazy corporate. I mean,
and
it's always
I'm
been, but go ahead.
I'm just going to throw this out there, but you let me know, John, if
Yeah.
this is something that you would be down to do. Perhaps even interviewing our parents and talking about how they grew up
Ooh.
and the type
I'd
of
be
nostalgia they were
I'd
nostalgic
be down.
for.
I'd be down. I'd
Yeah,
be down. I would
yeah,
100% be down for that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. No, for sure. We got to get them on, especially because I think our parents are really the ones that kind of also formed us too, because
absolutely.
everyone's parents brings a little bit of their past into our present. And I think
Well
that's
said.
and I think that's just the natural way of just kind of how things are, and
Hmm.
it's really incredible, the amount of stuff we have now and the amount of technology that allows us to not only move forward but even go back in time in some ways.
No,
And,
absolutely.
and what
Live many lives.
yeah, there you go. Live many lives. There you go. There you go. Well, folks, I think that's pretty much all we have for you this time. So right now, as we're looking at it, as much as we would love to, this will be, as of now, a monthly podcast. So new episodes will be posted each month. And but we're hoping one day to get to a point where maybe we can get to bi-weekly or maybe even weekly. Um,
Yes,
because that's kind of our goal with this whole show. But unfortunately, with the way we are right now with life, we do have other commitments as well. So we hope that you'll bear with us and understand. But just know every month we're gonna shoot for the beginning of the month. There should be new episodes wherever you get your podcasts. We're gonna be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a lot of the other big ones. Hopefully, we can get on a good majority of them, so you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts at. And with
yes,
that,
absolutely. And just to add on to that before we end this,
yes,
we will be doing some lives throughout the month.
thank you.
I'm not sure if January we're going to start, but that's something to look forward to in the future. If you would like to interact with us in real time, if you would also like to talk about certain things nostalgia, or just about collections and media all in general, we'll leave that as a platform to engage directly with you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. I almost forgot. Thank you so much. And another thing I think we would like to possibly do too is eventually get a fan email up and going where you guys can write into us and tell us about some of your nostalgic memories as well. And you can tell us about some of the big things that shaped your guys' big pasts and whatnot and everything. And
Absolutely.
hopefully by us sharing some of our past, maybe we can bring a little bit more of yours back to life as well, and also hope to help many feel content in the present that we're living right now.
Absolutely. Long live the nostalgia geeks.
Long live the nostalgia geeks. Even though time has to go on, it's people like you and me that keep all these things alive. So that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely.
Well, my friend, this has been a great first episode, I feel like, and yeah, I gave you a little bit of taste of who we are and what we're gonna do, and we look forward to many more ventures on this avenue on this new show. Thank you all so much for listening to this very first episode of Rewind Room. We're so excited for everything that's to come, and yeah, we'll round it out. My name is John.
And my name is Ramona, and we will catch you on the rewind.
You
Make
know
sure
it.
to like and subscribe.
Make sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you all on the rewind, and we'll see you guys around. All right, my friend. Well, take care, and I hope everything goes well.
Thank you. Likewise, I
Yep.
look forward to what's to come.
I look forward to what's to come too. All right, folks. We will catch you later.